Hi, I'm Thomas Whitfield.
And I'm Justin Perez.
And this is Lunchbox Lessons, a podcast about obsession.
Me and Thomas every week will take you through the obsessions of one Thomas Whitfield and sometimes one Justin Perez.
I've got a confession and I want to share it with you. I've learned a lot of lessons. I think maybe you'll learn some too. It's more like an obsession and I'm gonna force it on you.
Okay, guys, welcome back. Welcome to episode 2. So, guys, I have so many things that I feel like I need to bring people up to date on.
Yes.
Just a lot of little announcements.
Yes.
So the first one, we now have intro music, which I guess if you listened to the first episode, then you heard the intro music there too. But that was actually added after, with the magic of editing.
Yes. And if you follow Thomas or myself on Instagram, you have seen the intro music. And so it was kind of like a soft opening, if you will, like a soft opening of a lens crafter. And even in the soft opening, someone still complained to Thomas, being like, "What is this crap? She's off key or something."
Yeah,
it was very. First off, I don't care. I think it sounds great.
No, I love it. I'm so excited about it. It is exactly what I wanted for the opening music. Like, I love the 90s sort of female rock grunge feel.
Yes, it seems like a song that would be played at Lilith Fair if the lyrics were not about a one man's obsession of the show or something.
Oh yeah,
you know what I mean? Like, it's the appropriate show for this podcast.
I thought about that when I was writing the lyrics, because it's like, I have an obsession and I'm gonna force it on you. And I was like,
interesting.
Is this gonna age well?
Will this age well in 7 minutes? Will this age well? We'll see. Time will tell.
So we are also recording for YouTube. So if you would rather see this instead of just hear us, you can actually watch us on YouTube as well. So right now you would just want to search Lunchbox Lessons Podcast, and it should come right up for you.
Yes.
So if you are watching, we're waving at you right now.
And if you are watching, I'm on TikTok, because I assume you will be under the age of 27 if you're watching on YouTube.
Did you really join TikTok?
Oh, I did. The Fartbox Comedy, as if I had like a comedy sort of like empire and I have to project it, you know what I mean? So I'm on TikTok, y'all. Okay, boomer. So those are all my millennial type words to say.
I saw a meme this week that
so
said,
did I.
fuck you. That said, in my day, TikTok was a song by Kesha.
Ooh. In my day, TikTok was what our watches did. Every generation has their version of TikTok. Now it's a crappy app that used to be like Musical.ly, and now
I don't know what it is. Can you tell me briefly?
Okay.
What is TikTok?
TikTok originally started as a lip syncing karaoke app. Does that make sense? So I mean, it's sort of like the drag world. People would record themselves on the app Musical.ly, and they would lip sync to whatever song they wanted to sing, and then eventually it sort of turned to replace Vine. So you can record up to 15-second videos or 60-second videos, and it's very easy to record it. You hit the button to record, you let go, and let's say you set up somewhere else, and then you hit the button again to record. It's like a very simple way to edit a video.
Okay, so I was gonna ask about
the ease of it is very, very easy.
Because I've seen the little things of it.
Yes.
Okay.
And then once you're done recording your 15 or 60-second video, you can also add things in post, you can add little quotes around your face, you can add music, you can add whatever, and so people have really taken to it because it's filling the void of Vine, R.I.P. Vine. So that is essentially TikTok, and there's a bunch of celebrities on TikTok, which is very bizarre.
Which is why you joined.
Yes, but I have 3 videos and they're all involving my dog with an egg, so the egg challenge.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I did see a TikTok video this week, so I have some idea of what it is, but you telling me about how the editing, because I was curious, because I've seen these videos that look pretty well edited, and I'm like, I don't think anybody really knows how to do this, so it's partially the app. I saw one of a nurse.
Okay.
I don't remember what her TikTok name was. But she was doing some dance where like bubbles were popping up on the side as she was saying
with poop.
No, I didn't see one with poop.
Like, did it say stuff like when I'm getting your poop, I'm also like thinking, man, this poop smells?
No, it was not that one.
Because I saw one exactly
on
like
brand
yeah,
for
yeah.
you.
Well, thank you, but okay, so go on.
So she was doing this thing about how the only way to not get pregnant and not have STDs is to wait until marriage. Like, are you serious? Because she's like, I'm a nurse, you have to listen to me. And then this whole thing is about like anti-sex and abstinence, which has been shown over and over to actually lead to, like, abstinence-only sex education leads to higher rates of unplanned pregnancy and STIs.
Yeah.
It just blows my mind. So then I saw a couple videos of people making fun of her, and I was like, thank God.
Yeah, of course. You can't put something like that and not get slam dunked on. It's not possible.
And I'm sure that now she's probably going to become some, like, right-wing newscaster or some BS that got attacked by liberal media.
Yeah, she was shunned by the liberal TikTok kids, and now she's the host of Greta Van Sussberg. They keep the name Greta Van Sussberg, and they just put in Nurse Jackie, whatever her name is.
So we're going to jump into some Roseanne.
Yes!
So we watched episode 2, which is called We're in the Money. But before we get into that, you know, you and I are both kind of obsessed people with different things.
Yes.
What have you been obsessed with this week?
Well, my friend, I sent you the article on our friend from Florida. It's going to take me a second to remember his name. Do you remember his name?
No.
Oh, God. This is going to bother me. I listened to it on the podcast Criminal, which is a beautiful podcast hosted by Phoebe Judge, the most soothing voice in radio/podcast. Yes, I'm Phoebe Judge, and this is Criminal. It's very like pleasing to the ASMR groups of the world. I was obsessed with Carl Tanzler. Carl Tanzler was a German-born radiologist technician in Key West, and he's famous for falling in love with a Hispanic woman that he tried to treat her tuberculosis. She dies from the tuberculosis. She's much younger than him. This guy is like in his late 50s when this happened, and she's in her like 20s.
I thought she was younger than that, because you said Hispanic woman. I thought that she was like 16, but maybe I'm wrong.
She was born in 1909 and died in 1931. So that is, what's 9 years from 31?
22.
This is how we figure out that we were actually dumb.
22.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's correct. And so Carl Tanzler was this guy. He tried to treat her. He failed. He became obsessed with her in death, so much so that he offered the family a mausoleum in her honor. Built it, erected it, and then he started to hang out at it all the time. And then he took the body from the mausoleum. He brought the body home. Neighbors saw him dancing with a dead body through the window. The family heard about it and was very upset. And they called the police. And what they eventually found was that, let's see, he tried to preserve the body through his own methods. Now, Thomas, if you were to preserve a body, what would you do?
Formaldehyde? But I don't know if formaldehyde, I don't even know if that existed at that time.
That's true, in like the 20s. Well, he was convinced that Miss Hoyo's spirit would come to him, and she would often tell him to take her from the grave. And so to preserve the body, what he did was he tied the corpse's bones together with wire and coat hangers, fitted the face with glass eyes, and as the skin of the corpse decomposed, he replaced it with silk cloth soaked in wax and plaster of Paris. And as the hair fell out, he fashioned a wig from Miss Hoyo's hair that had been collected by the mother. He filled the corpse with the abdomen and the chest cavity with rags to keep the form. And he used copious amounts of perfume, disinfectants, preserving agents to mask the odor and effects of the corpse decomposition. That's from Wikipedia, y'all. And yeah.
Did he, now, is there any reporting on if he actually engaged in sex with the body?
There's no way to tell.
Engage, if he raped the body? I don't even know what term you want to
You
use
can't
for
rape a
that.
dead person, but you can desecrate it. I think it'd be like desecration, and I think there's probably an official charge in the law of like improper use, or like I don't know. There's definitely some type of law about like fucking bodies in most states, but I don't think they think he did that. I think they he eventually went to trial because the family was furious, and they
understandable.
Yeah, and they didn't really know what to do, but the case was eventually dropped. The statute of limitations expired, and most people sort of this was like a sensation at the time, and most people just sort of were like, "He's in love, poor guy, he's in love."
That's so crazy.
Yeah.
And I wonder, because of the time period too, like I don't know exactly what different diagnoses were for mental health at the time.
Yeah.
But I don't even know what that would fall under. Like I would be curious to know, like, was he hearing voices? Like, did he have some sort of schizophrenia? But even then, like I've met a ton of people that have schizophrenia and they don't do shit like that.
Oh, I thought this was standard schizophrenia behavior.
Nope. It's not standard behavior for any sort of a psychological disorder. Yeah, and what the body looks like is. Oof.
Yeah, if
Not
you look online at the corpse of Maria Elena Milagro de Hoyos, they have a photo of her body post Hansler's makeup job, and it is haunting, my friend. I really encourage you to look at the before and after photo. The photo of her, there's one photo of her alive, and then there's a photo of her post-death, and it is horrifying. She looks like a fake doll.
Yeah, I mean, she looks like what would have been filmed for like a 1960s horror movie.
Like a body thrown off like the bridge or something.
Yeah.
But that's an actual person. Like there's bones underneath there. It's really horrifying.
It's not good.
Yeah. So that's been my obsession. Tommy, I think I sent you that. And
You did.
And you kind of got into it a little bit, right?
Yeah, because I have heard about it on, I think I heard about it on the last podcast on the left, and then also on my favorite murder. I don't listen to Criminal so much.
Yeah.
But I know that I've heard it, and I'm not sure if it was on both of those or one of those, because there's usually some sort of
Some overlap,
crossover.
yeah.
I mean, there's only so many famous like true crime murder stories.
All right, so Tommy, is there something that you've been obsessed over?
I have been obsessed with ACT, which is acceptance and commitment therapy.
Ooh.
It's a new form of therapy that I'm learning I'm co-leading a group. So I'm co-leading with someone at the hospital that I'm working at who has more experience with ACT. And I mean, it's very similar to cognitive behavioral therapy, which is what I sort of specialize in.
Yeah.
So I've been focused on reading this 400-page book about ACT and all the different techniques, and then starting to co-lead. It's interesting. So ACT is, for people that don't know, which most people that even go to a therapist have no idea what type of therapist that they're going to.
I go to therapy, and I do not know what type of therapy she's performing on me.
Yeah, and I am, so as someone that practices cognitive behavioral therapy, I try not to perform it on anyone, but...
You try not to act out, if you will?
Right, yeah.
Thank you.
But I'm very clear, like, this is the type of therapy that we do, this is how it works. It's very sort of formulaic. There's a plan. And ACT is very similar in that way, but so a lot of people that are going to therapy for anxiety and depression have, you kind of get to a point to where you may have tried a bunch of different therapies and none of them have worked.
Yeah.
And ACT is kind of the place that people go after that. So it's acceptance and commitment therapy. Essentially, you are accepting that you have some symptoms of anxiety, some symptoms of depression, and they're not going to go away.
Yeah.
So instead of fighting and trying to get these symptoms to go away, you're going to accept that you have them and then make behavioral decisions based on your values and mindfulness.
So does that mean, like, let's say I'm a depressive, anxiety-ridden person. I'm not that, well, I'm not, but let's say I am, right? If there's something that is going to come up, like an event, like a wedding or something, or like a bachelor party, for example. Like this weekend, I was supposed to go to a bachelor party, but I personally felt like I may have had a terrible time, and I anticipated myself getting anxiety. Now working with a therapist who sort of does ACT, would I be like, hey, maybe I shouldn't go to this because I feel like it'll trigger a lot of anxiety in me?
No.
Okay.
So
interpretation is way off.
No. So that's actually avoidance.
Yes. Avoidance since 1983, my friend.
Yeah. So this thing is going to give me anxiety, so I'm not going to do it. And that makes sense for some situations in life. If you are someone that does not like to be in big crowds, but there's a concert coming up, then you have to decide: am I going to handle being in this big crowd, or am I not going to go to this concert?
Yeah.
So if you are someone who has such extreme sort of social anxiety that you just don't go and do anything, that's a huge problem.
Yes.
Like if you are missing a concert, fine, you made that decision that you would rather not go than go to the concert. Okay, that was your choice. But if it's like, I'm also not going to go to the grocery store and I'm not going to, leave my apartment, then it's a bigger thing and impacting your life in a bigger way. So with ACT, it would be like, okay, what are your values? Let's say that, one of your top 5 values is friendship. Okay, so you were invited to a bachelor party.
Yeah.
If you do or don't go, what is going to move you closer to your value? Going or not going? And then kind of tapping into mindfulness, which is being present in the moment to make that decision, and then committing to the decision that you've made. But also having the understanding of, yes, I am going to get anxiety, I am going to be uncomfortable. Just because I'm uncomfortable doesn't mean I can't do it. Yeah.
Because it ties in more to my a core value of being a friendship or something. Mm-hmm. So it's sort of enforcing the things I want to believe or think about myself. Interesting.
Yeah, whereas straight cognitive behavioral therapy would differ in that would ask you to challenge your anxious thoughts with reality or use them as exposures. So expose yourself to the anxiety until you habituate to it.
Sort of like I'm scared of flying, so you go statistically.
Yeah.
You are not going to die flying.
Yeah.
It's safer than driving, safer than walking. Mm-hmm. I see. Okay.
And for some people that doesn't work. So then it's like, okay, you're going to have anxiety no matter what.
Yeah.
Let's just accept that you're going to have anxiety and help you live a life with that anxiety.
Yeah.
And generally the outcome is because you're forcing yourself to have new experiences, that anxiety is going to go down anyway, but that's not the focus of ACT.
Interesting.
Yeah, so it changes the focus from I need to change how I feel or how I think to I'm going to accept that this is how I feel and think, but I'm also going to choose to make a decision that's different from that.
Interesting. Do you think that if you wanted to train in this, is it a long training process, or is it how would you train for this if you wanted to go this route instead of cognitive therapy? Cognitive behavior therapy.
Yeah, that's a really good question. At this point, I've learned so many different therapies and manuals and modalities that I feel like I can pick up ACT in a couple weeks because I know a lot of what the modules are and what they're getting at. Mm-hmm. But that's because I have a background in all of these other things. Yeah. But it took me a few years to get really comfortable using cognitive behavioral therapy. So if I didn't have that as a base, it wouldn't be as easy for me to do these other things. And even before cognitive behavioral therapy, I had motivational interviewing, which is a different type
I don't even know what that means, but it sounds very energetic.
It isn't.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
Yeah, it's about helping people make behavioral changes.
Oh,
so it's a type of dialogue.
Yeah, interesting. Do you find that, this is completely unrelated, do you think that you going through all this training has made you better at communicating how you feel about yourself to people you're in relationships with?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
I've been dating.
Is it exhausting for the other person though?
Oh, I definitely think that my boyfriend gets exhausted with me sometimes, for sure. I'm not.
You want to talk about it again?
Yeah. No, but it isn't.
Can't we just be quiet about it and think about it and stew about it and resent the person for a week and then finally get back together and we're fine?
So we don't fight, which is where you're kind of going with it.
No. I think it's possible to not fight with that, but I'm just curious if
I'm always sharing things about myself.
Yeah.
I'm always having, because I'm working with patients, and then I'm seeing reflections of myself in patients. And then I want to reflect that back to him because I'm I learned this funny thing about myself. And
You're literally describing the plot of Frasier.
Am I?
Yeah.
Maybe I do
That
need
is
to
the
go
plot.
back and watch
Frasier
it.
is a therapist. I think he's a psychoanalyst, and he just has patients, or he talks to people. He really talks. He has a radio show where he does therapy, like talk radio therapy. But essentially, your life is Frasier.
Well, I guess I am gonna have to go back and watch it then. And I think that kind of like drives my boyfriend a little bit crazy because he doesn't like, he cares, but he doesn't want to hear about it all the time. Or I want to like share things that maybe my patients have shared with me, not specifics, but this is who they are, but like they said this funny thing, and he's like,
Yeah, that's fun.
But I do think that because I've been with him the entire time that I've been in graduate school, like he has commented on how much I have changed since the beginning of graduate school. Just that I'm better at listening to people.
Nice. So it's been a positive. It's been a boon for the relationship, if you will.
I think so.
Guess we'll find out soon enough. Interesting. All right, shall we get into Roseanne?
Yeah, let's get into Roseanne. So I obviously, maybe not obviously, but I went back and listened to the first episode, and there were, a couple things that I was like, maybe we were a little bit off about that.
Yeah.
So the first one being corn. I was like, every episode in the first season they bring it up. So apparently corn is either said or you see it in every episode of the entire series. Now, I don't know if that includes season 10 and then the Connors now, or just seasons 1 through 9.
Yeah, or if it stops after the original run.
Yeah.
I will say, I think it's interesting and very cool, but it's also very bizarre to have an obsession with corn. This show has a lot of confidence. I think that's the thing. It really does. Like, it has a lot of confidence. Like, for a show that came out of a stand-up comic and was developed with like a big producing team like Werner and Casey and Werner, it has a lot of confidence from day one. They have this thing with the Viking ship, like Dan's making some type of ship, and it seems to have an overall arc that's going to be played out with that ship eventually. Like, they have a lot of balls in the air, which is something you would do if like you're like a seasoned pro at creating shows.
And one thing that I never noticed before is that ship is not very big.
Well, it's not.
I don't know how they're going to retire on that ship.
I don't know either. It's very interesting. It's something that like a good show will do. They'll have a lot of things that they confidently feel like they can get to eventually because they have confidence in the material. And this show does that. And the corn thing just ties into that of like, wow, you guys think you're getting a full run and you're going to use corn every time? And they did get a full run.
Yeah, and someone probably said that, and Roseanne was probably like, fuck you, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Just because you said that you didn't think we could or should. So one of the things that I said is that Matt Williams, this is a really well-known guy. I see his name on everything. So I actually then looked at him in IMDb, and I think I've just seen his name in the opening of Roseanne quite a bit, because he doesn't have a lot else there.
He hasn't done much since then.
Yeah, and he is just part of it for the first season.
Oh.
And then he
gets pushed
leaves.
out.
Yeah,
he probably gets pushed out. There's no way he would leave that.
There was a lot of drama, from what I understand, with Roseanne on the set. Because I think that she had a very distinct vision of what she wanted the show to be, and if people disagreed with her, like, she pushed for what she wanted, to the point that people would rather leave a hit TV show
than have to deal with this woman.
Yeah.
I will say her and John Goodman are both the same age. They're both 36 when the show airs. And I feel like if you get famous at 36, you kind of know everything about yourself in terms of like, I will stand for this, I will fight for this I will not fight for. And I think if you were younger, first off, I think if she was younger, I think they would have just bought the show from her and cast 2 other people.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
If she was 25, 24, maybe they try to cast her, or maybe they push her to lose weight, or maybe they do something like that. But there's no way the show would look the same way at 25 that it looks at 36.
Well, and I also wonder from, with her being a woman, if she had all these things that she wanted to do or things that she wasn't going to budge on, would people have been more okay with it if she was a man and not pushed back, or there hadn't been some sort of a drama? They would have been like, oh, well, that's what he wants to do, so we'll let him do it.
Yeah, like if this was Home Improvement with Tim Allen, and Tim Allen was pushing you on something, you'd probably concede it because he is the star of the show. You know what I mean? Like, Roseanne's name is on the show. So in the grand scheme of things, she has a lot of things writing on why she wants it to be a certain way.
And I found out that she was offered the role of Peg Bundy and turned it down.
Wow.
Yeah, and turned it down because she wanted to do
Roseanne.
Roseanne. How different would, like, I haven't seen a ton of Married with Children.
I have, yeah.
And I know you have. How, like, can you imagine her as Peg Bundy? Like, I don't know what their dynamic would have been.
I don't know. Well, first off, I don't know if they'd cast Ed O'Neill, who's incredible in that. He is the show. Him and Katie Siegel are the show. And I don't know. I don't know. It would change the entire dynamic of the show. And, like, a lot of the joking is that she is attractive, but she's the worst person alive. Like, all the jokes Al Bundy makes are like, yeah, she's in shape, but like this woman, you know what I mean? Women, right? And I don't know what happens if you have Roseanne in there, you know what I mean? So that's really interesting. Yeah, and I think when you're 30, I'm so obsessed with her being 36 because I'm 36. So if I were to have a show right now, I would not budge on a lot of things. I would be like, listen, I waited this long. There's like a long line of people who've got famous in like the mid to late 30s. Like Ricky Gervais got famous from The Office in his late 30s, and he had that idea for a while, and he worked in radio for a while, and then by the time he did The Office, the reason the British Office looks so good and feels so funny and smart is because he had these ideas in his head for a while, and he wasn't going to compromise. I think you're less likely to compromise in important things when you're older, because you know, like, hey, if I'm going to strike out, I'm going to strike out on my own sort of on my own terms, right?
Well, and if you've been trying for so long up to that point, so if you've been actively trying to get things going, you've probably been making, you know, safer choices and things have not been working.
Yes.
So then you're like, fuck this, I'm going to do exactly what I want to do because I've tried doing other things that people want me to do in the past and it hasn't worked out. So like, fuck it. I'm just going to do what I want to do. And then when people are authentic and do what they want to do, I think people respond to that more, even if it doesn't fit into like a cookie cutter mold of what something is supposed to be.
Yeah, the writer Chuck Palahniuk, he wrote the book Fight Club, which eventually got turned into a movie. He originally wrote this book called Invisible Monsters that got rejected by a lot of places. And so in anger, he started to write Fight Club at like a short story workshop. And that eventually became his book. That was like a big breakout. And he wrote it in anger in response to getting rejected by the other stuff. You know what I mean? So like when you have something that's out there and you're like, why don't I just do what I really want to do? That usually works out better for people. If they're talented. If they're not talented, then it becomes, you know, wow, you wrote in crayon your screenplay or whatever the hell's going on. You know what I mean? Like, you also have to have talent, but it also helps to just say fucking do what you want to do.
Yeah, I often wonder how much of it is talent and how much of it is luck. And just like, right timing or whatever.
I mean, you have to be able to pitch things and write things in order to get the luck.
Yeah, very true.
You know what I mean? Like, you can't get luck if you're just thinking about something at your house.
Yeah.
There's not very lucky people like that.
So we also mentioned George Clooney, who appears in that first episode.
Yes.
And I was like, oh, I think this may have been his first time on TV. Like, I said something ridiculous. I went back and looked at his IMDb, and he has like 30 things before Roseanne. Not a lot that I had heard of. But he had been around. Like, he had been working.
I knew he was in The Facts of Life. That was sort of his big role pre this show. And I knew he was in a couple other sitcoms, but yeah.
And we haven't seen him, with the episode that we're talking about today, he's not in it, but he does eventually come back. Oh. He ends up being in 7 or 8 episodes, so he becomes reoccurring.
Yeah.
And then, so in this episode, in episode 2, We're in the Money, the original air date was October 25th, 1988, and what had gone on between the pilot and this episode is there had been a writer's strike. So one of the reasons that the original DJ was fired was because he grew too much as well. It seems like there were a combination of things. Apparently, it was between Michael Fishman and Macaulay Culkin.
Oh my God.
It was pre-Home Alone.
Oh my God. And between Michael Fishman and Macaulay Culkin was better not getting this.
Oh, yeah. 1,000,000%. He would have, I mean, he obviously had a very great career as a child actor. Not a great home life. But I can't even imagine this blonde-haired kid in this like, I
guess it would work out a little bit. They'd try to dirty him up a little bit, but because the oldest sister, the original Becky, is she's blonde, right?
Yeah.
So I guess it would. First of all, I don't know why she's blonde. I guess John Goodman's a little blonde. He's like sandy haired, I guess.
I don't know.
All right, so
Hair colorblind casting. Recessive gene.
yeah, we will dye his hair. We need Macaulay in here. All right, so go on. So
so I just thought that was really interesting and how different. I mean, also Macaulay Culkin's just kind of a big, like he has a presence.
yeah,
And like Michael Fishman as a child in this show like doesn't have that big like presence.
this is the second.
Yes, yeah, the second.
Okay.
So the
Second
the
DJ.
one that ends up being the DJ
Yes.
for the rest of it.
I
He doesn't pull away from Roseanne or Dan at all,
No.
whereas I think like Macaulay Culkin would have.
I just wrote down. I took notes for this episode. I wrote down. New child seems to be cute and hits his lines. He's not doing much beyond that. He's hitting his lines and moving on.
What else can you ask for?
Yeah, that's literally all you want.
I mean, when I was auditioning to be an actor, like I couldn't even do that. So and I was in my 20s.
All right, so
why don't I'm going to give a brief synopsis
Sure.
of this episode, and then we'll dive in a little bit deeper with some of the themes. So it starts out, Dan puts in a drywall bid for a new job and is selected for the job and is given a $500 advance. When the kids find out about it, they begin to beg for different things that they want to do with the money, as though this $500 is going to change their lives.
yes,
And then Dan and Roseanne sit down to pay the bills with their checkbook and find out that after everything is covered, they have $11 left, or right about, I think it's like $11.58 or something. So, they're clearly living paycheck to paycheck. And then Dan and Roseanne talk about how they were hoping to have more left over because Roseanne wants to buy this perfume and Dan wants to buy a bell for the boat that he's building. They agree not to. However, the next day, Jackie tells Roseanne, or talks Roseanne into buying the perfume, and Dan buys the bell. And then that night, they both try to hide their purchases from each other, and their covers are blown. So, as
a little gift of the magi there, except they just bought what they wanted to.
Yeah, I don't know what that's a reference to be honest with you.
Really?
I've heard people say that, but I don't know where it
Gift
comes
of the
from.
Magi is an old Christmas story about how this family doesn't have a lot of money, and so they decide, the wife decides to cut her hair short and sells her hair so that she can purchase something for her husband, and her husband does something else. He sacrifices something.
Hopefully not a person.
No, he sacrifices something so that he can buy like his wife a comb or something, and she doesn't have hair. They both sacrifice something, and they both kind of screw themselves over. But it's like it's the thought that counts. We like show that we loved each other. That's the general premise.
So it's like that, except they're buying things for
except they're
themselves.
just buying stuff that they want. Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly
this was-
like that.
Yeah, I mean that would have been funny if she would have went and bought the bell for him, and he would have bought the perfume for her. But that is not.
No,
what
that is
happened.
not.
So this is the first time that I've ever watched a TV show and kind of broke it down into just what is going on in an episode.
Yeah.
And it seems very simple. Like, obviously, when you dive into the dialogue and pick it apart, it becomes something much bigger. But when you just look at, like, this is the A, B, C, D thing of an episode, like, it seems not that difficult, which I'm obviously making it very simple, but...
The story is basically they win money, and they have dreams of what they want to do with it, and then a couple of lines ensue, and then the episode wraps. There's not much to it, but in the episode, there's a lot of cool things going on. Like, we meet that woman at the restaurant. She's very interesting. We sort of see how everyone thinks on the show in terms of, like, what they want for themselves. And then we see a little bit of Jackie as a babysitter, who's very funny. Like, I think it's the first time in the full 2 episodes that I actually saw Jackie as fun.
That is the 3rd episode.
Yeah.
We're talking
Oh no! Jesus Christ! Oh damn it! I'm sorry. That is the 3rd episode.
I'll edit that out. I'll clip it. So one of the big themes of it is spending money. And how are they going to spend money? And we get a lot of information about kind of who this family is. So they're definitely living paycheck to paycheck.
Yes.
And they sit down to pay the bills, and Roseanne has this joke about, oh well, I know, here's my way for paying bills, and like we'll send this check to the company, and we didn't even get the credit
We won't
card
sign
bill,
the check when we send it, so they send it back to us, And it's all things that, like, I haven't done exactly that, but I've done these little games of like, all right, this will buy me like 5 days. Let's see if I can do this.
Yeah, I've done stuff like that too.
Yeah, or like I'll make a partial payment on something, even though like the full bill is $150. I'll make like $50, or I'll call up Con Ed and say like, can I do a payment plan until whatever? And they're like, yeah, pay $20 for the rest of your life, whatever it is. Oh, great! What a great idea! Thank you so much, Con Ed. It's so nice of you.
I recently, so like moving to PA, I had to obviously have my electricity turned on, and I had to transfer it into my name. And I thought that I got a bill, and I don't know, it was like $60, and then the next month my bill was like $120, and I was like, why is it twice as much? I mean, I guess maybe I had the air conditioner on more. It was a partial month, and the next month it was like $200, and I was like, why is my electricity bill so high? Like, I have to stop this. So I stopped using the AC, was just like living in the heat in my house, and then the next month it was even higher. So I was like, I have to call them. So I called them, and I was like, my bill went from $60 to over $200, and I don't think I'm using any electricity. Like, it's a house, like half of it is mine, half is this business, but like the business isn't open. Am I paying for both of them? Like,
yeah,
what's going on? And she's like, we never received a payment from you, so it's just adding
Oh
on.
my god! Oh my god! Sir, you've paid nothing.
Yeah, I was like,
that's just $60 every month.
yeah, and I was like,
oh,
that makes
okay.
So can I make a payment? Could we do auto pay?
Can I just give you $60? Real quick, the gift of the Magi is basically the woman sells her hair for $20. She buys a fob chain for her husband's watch, and her husband sells his watch to buy his wife a set of combs. Set of combs, guys. That was the big thing in 1905.
What is the watch thing?
Oh, Henry.
Do you know?
The watch thing? What do you mean?
She bought him a watch.
A fob chain. A chain that so pocket watches used to be back in the day.
Oh, so that's like the chain.
It's a chain that goes to the pocket watch from like the belt loop to the actual watch.
It's pretty fucking classy.
Yeah.
I like that.
This was written by O. Henry and the story was allegedly written at Pete's Tavern on 18th and Gramercy.
Oh.
Or like 18th and Irving Plaza, I think.
Okay. Yeah. I've been there. Isn't
Yeah.
that supposed to be haunted?
I don't
One
know.
of the places. I feel like everything in this fucking city is supposed to be haunted.
I heard that it's overpriced.
Probably. If it's been open that long, I'm sure it is.
It's overpriced.
So they come up with this creative way for paying the bills, and Dad's like, no, we need to be adults.
Let's get ahead. Let's finally be ahead. You know what I mean?
Yeah, ahead by maybe a month.
Yeah.
And really ahead for them is caught up at $11 ahead.
Yeah.
And he's like, I hope that we were going to have some more money to play with. And, what would you do? And she's like, oh, nothing. And he's like, I think you'd want that perfume subscription. And she's like, it's seduction. And then she says that he wants that bell, or he says that he wants the bell, and they both decide not to do anything.
Yeah.
And then Roseanne goes to work, is telling Jackie about how Dan got this job, and Jackie's like, you need to do something for yourself, you need to put yourself first. And Roseanne's like such a single woman thing to say.
Yeah.
Which, I can relate with that a little bit, because the people that I'm on internship with, some of them have families and kids, and I can live on the stipend that we get, but we all get the same stipend. And it's much more difficult for them because they have family and kids. So, like, in this scenario, like, I'm Jackie. I'm like, you gotta treat yourself. And they're like, with what?
You should take yourself to a nice Mexican restaurant and have some margaritas and, I don't know, go to Italy maybe for the weekend.
Yeah, Jackie's like, go on vacation.
Yeah. Like the most impractical thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely. But she kind of gets in Roseanne's head about the perfume. So Roseanne goes to the mall.
Yes.
I mean, it seems like a mall, or it's a department store, to get perfume. And this brought so much back for me. So,
what did it bring back for you? Because I had my own thoughts about it too.
So when I first moved to New York City, I was living up in Westchester. I was dating someone, and I was living up in Larchmont.
Yeah.
And I was commuting into the city to go to school at the School of Visual Arts, and which was like a 30-minute ride on the Metro North, not a big deal. But I was working at the Westchester Mall, which is one of the most expensive malls in America.
Yeah.
There's a Tiffany's and all that kind of shit. So I started working at a restaurant called the
Cheesecake Factory.
No. It was some sort of a diner. It was family owned, but it was like a really
in the
expensive
mall
diner.
An expensive diner in a mall.
Yeah, they were like $20 cheeseburgers, shit like that. And I was one of 2 white people that worked there, which coming from Michigan was very different for me. Like I come from the middle of Michigan where there are no people of color whatsoever. And it was me and this other white gay guy, and then all these Spanish people that would, I think they were talking about us in Spanish all the time.
Well, anytime you're surrounded by a language that's not your own, you're convinced they're all talking about me.
But they would also look at us and laugh and stuff. So there was I had a reason.
Okay, there's some evidence.
Yeah, but also I don't know if I was smart enough to speak more than one language, I don't know, I would probably end up doing shit like that too.
Yeah,
I get it. But below us, or right next to us, was Neiman Marcus. And we used to have these women who would come in for lunch every single day in all their Neiman Marcus
gear,
black and their hair done up and makeup and whatever, and they would expect to get seated right away. They would be very picky about what they were going to order. They would want everything a specific way, and they always tipped the same amount of money. And we used to call them the Neiman Demons.
Oh my god, did they tip well?
I think they tipped appropriately.
Okay.
Kind of not what you would tip if you were someone who came into a restaurant every single day. If you're going to the same place every single day, you kind of have to tip a little bit more.
Yeah.
That goes for a bar or whatever. If you're a regular, it's kind of expected that you're going to tip a little bit more.
Yeah.
And I think they did the 15% or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, they would a lot of times be so rude, so we would call them the Neiman Demons.
Yeah.
And they were very much like the woman in this episode who was trying to sell Roseanne the perfume.
It's very funny because I used to feel, up until maybe 7 years ago, I used to feel very uncomfortable around people who worked at really nice stores. Because it's just my own class thing coming up, you know what I mean? I would feel I don't belong here, I can't afford anything here. I used to do the thing that Roseanne is kind of doing this. She goes inside and she's not looking to buy it. She's hoping to sort of divine intervention, something will happen and she'll just have it. But I don't think she's looking to buy it. She kind of convinces herself eventually. But I used to go to stores, not buy anything, just look at it, hold it for a while, and then put it right back.
Really? Yeah. I have never had that control.
Oh, I've done it, and then when I was younger, I would just steal it. I was a big shoplifter until the age of 14.
Really?
For 3 years. I was a big shoplifter, and then I got caught stealing batteries at an A&P.
Batteries come up in this episode too.
Oh yeah, batteries do come up. But I remember being super intimidated by people at really nice stores. I remember being intimidated at Abercrombie before I ended up working there in college.
Because everybody on the walls fucking looked beautiful, and it was dark, and the people would give you the side eye.
Yeah, and I remember being intimidated, and then something clicked maybe 7 years ago, which is probably not. It's probably a little late for this to click, but I remember thinking oh wait, they just work there. They didn't design the clothes. They don't own this. They don't work in corporate. They work in retail, sort of like I worked at Abercrombie and I worked at Dunkin' Donuts, or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's essentially the same job.
Yeah, they make the $8.50 an hour.
Yeah, they make nothing. Sure, maybe they come from money or something, but still, they are still selling sweaters. You know what I mean? So once that clicks for you, you kind of can't unforget it. Of oh yeah, fuck these people.
Yeah.
If you're signing me, I really don't give a shit because you're the one who's showing me a sweater.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, 1000%.
Yeah.
And you see that Roseanne is uncomfortable.
Yes.
And she's oh, I want to see this perfume. And the woman's oh, well, are you thinking about this or this or this? And, perfume is really just the last layer in the line. And Roseanne goes, well, I wasn't really looking to get layered. Which
stuff
tickled me.
Yeah, that's good. I also like the wording of layered. That's totally a funny idea to think the last layer of a woman's defense, essentially.
And then the woman's well, don't you I know that this is really going to turn on your man. And she goes, oh, for my man, that's whatever.
Yeah.
I should actually have the line written down, but she just makes this line of oh yeah, that's that's what I do. Is I want to live for my man.
Yeah, but it's very sarcastic.
But the woman thinks she's being serious, and Roseanne just kind of makes it up, and then goes to get the perfume, and then decides not to get it, and then ends up leaving with the perfume.
Yes.
I wonder if there was ever a scene that they wrote or shot where Dan was doing a similar thing, because we don't see Dan by the bell.
He
We
just
see
has
him
it
in the garage.
He has it in the garage, and yeah.
And we know that it happened, but I would be really curious to know if there was
Like
something they wrote for
a bell salesman.
yeah. At a hardware store.
Yeah, well, this is the last layer of a boat, the bell.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it would look really good if you rang it right now. You want to ring it for me, baby? Just it becomes this very hypersexual thing.
You can ring my bell.
Well, I feel like if they would have had that scene, it wouldn't show the class. Like, you're buying a bell, it's probably from a hardware store or from, like, a very specific store, but it wouldn't strike me as a class place like you would a department store.
Yeah, he's probably not going there and being intimidated.
Yeah,
by
he doesn't give a shit.
the bell.
Yeah, by the
Or the person trying to sell the
yeah,
bell.
at like a outdoor like store. You know what I mean? Like, there's nobody intimidating there.
Right. So we see him in the garage. He's like shining his bell, and then Darlene comes in and she's
Shining the
like,
bell.
"What's
That's
that?"
like a busy work, like a bartender, always like cleaning
Totally.
the glasses at all times in,
Yeah.
in movies and TV.
Yeah, which we never do.
Yeah.
As someone the bartender for a very long time, your glass was always dirty. Let's just be clear.
I cleaned it in a bucket of soap and water that's been cleaned with a million other things.
Yeah,
Have fun.
absolutely disgusting. So Darlene comes in, he kind of kicks her out, and then he goes into the house, and Roseanne throws the perfume under the sink, and then Dan goes to get under the sink to help put something away, and Roseanne's like, no, and they kind of he calls her out. He's trying to make her feel bad, and then
He's like, if you bought the perfume, then it's okay if you bought it, because you know what? To make you feel better about yourself, if you want, I'll buy the Viking bell. She's like, you bought the bell, Dan!
he's like, I did not, and then DJ comes through ringing the bell.
Perfect timing. Like, that's a perfectly written scene right there.
Mm-hmm.
To show instead of tell.
Yeah.
They showed DJ playing with the bell, and they established it earlier on of DJ wanting to ring the bell.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a really well written part.
And then one thing that comes back at the end, which I've seen this episode a ton of times and I didn't put it together, but so when they find out that they get this money, like Becky and Darlene are freaking out that it's so much money, and Roseanne's like, we're gonna get a pool and pet sharks, and like makes a joke they're gonna feed the kids to the sharks, but Becky asks for designer jeans.
Yes.
And then at the end of the
show.
episode, she has designer jeans on, and she's like, look at my new jeans.
Yes.
And Dan says something about how tight they are, and she's like, I'm gonna wash them again so they're even tighter.
Yes.
And Roseanne says, how popular do you want to be?
Yeah.
And then she says, thank you, Mom. And I didn't put it together before. They got the bell, they got the perfume, they got her the designer jeans.
They most likely spent the majority of that check on their stuff.
Yeah, not on the stuff that they had intended to spend it on. And I think that is something that happens a lot with families that, don't have a lot of money or are living paycheck to paycheck, is then they get this amount of
surplus,
money.
yeah.
And then it just gets spent because you're so like deprived of getting the things that you want that then you have the opportunity and you get it all. It's like binging, sort of.
I completely understand it. Like, I was never so dire like this, but there were times where our family didn't have money. But I think people will do this. This is a big Republican argument point sometimes of like, these people on welfare and they're buying like sneakers or something, like Jordans or something. Thing is, like, when you're sort of encased in poverty like this sometimes, when you get money, you want to feel like everyone else. You're kind of jealous that you don't get to get these things, that you have to clean your shoes all the time, that you have to like take care of them, and all these other people are just buying them willy-nilly. So like, I get it. You know what I mean? Like, this episode really encapsulates, like, so far throughout the show, we haven't seen really a person of color, and I don't really have a problem with that. I'm a person of color, but I don't care to me because this show is showing a very specific story about a very specific family, so it makes sense that you wouldn't see someone of color, but they are doing the same sort of thing that like a poor Puerto Rican family would have to deal with. Of like, we have money, we want to spend it responsibly, but we also just want to be happy for a few minutes of our life.
Yeah, and that makes so much sense to me. I do similar stuff like that
all the time.
too, like buying shit that I don't need to be spending money on, but that I know is probably going to give me pleasure for a small amount of time.
Yeah, happiness is just a feeling, and once you have it, you're looking for it again. You know what I mean? That's Mad Men season 6. No, I mean, that's all. That is sort of a Mad Men quote, but that's really what it is. And like, you can't blame someone for like wanting to feel like everyone else and wanting to have a brief moment of happiness.
And wanting to give your kids the things that they want, even if they're not the things that maybe
you would get for them.
Make the most sense
Yeah.
or whatever. Another thing that came up in the beginning is it starts with Dan looking for looking for batteries for his flashlight, I think. And they've been taken out of the fire detector or something like that. But this sort of argument ensues with Darlene took the batteries and now they don't have them for this thing that they want. And batteries in my family, so I get why you stole them.
I did steal them, yeah.
Batteries for my family, they were like a thing.
Yeah.
Like we were always running out of batteries, and like the rechargeable ones came out, but they took like 3 days to charge or some like bullshit.
Yeah, and they were more expensive than regular batteries, and then when you don't have a lot of money, like it's easier just to buy cheaper regular batteries as opposed to rechargeable batteries and a charging port for it from Radio Shack.
I mean, even now when I need like AA or AAA batteries, like I buy the cheap batteries.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know what I'm thinking, but like that's what I do. Or I mean, everything has an AC adapter now, but that battery argument brought so much back for me because there have been so many times like I would steal batteries from everything for my black and white Game Boy.
Yep.
That weighed 5 pounds.
When I was stealing batteries from the A&P, the supermarket, if you're not from the Northeast, A&P is a supermarket, Atlantic Pacific. I was stealing it for my Discman. I needed batteries for my Discman, and God forbid I went a few days without batteries for my Discman. And so I stole it. The manager went around the other aisle because he saw me looking shifty-eyed, holding batteries, and when he came around the corner, he went, "Where are those batteries?" And then I went, "They're underneath my shirt, sir." And I produced them. He had me get my mom, who was getting her hair done next door, after she was done, and then I never stole again.
But you didn't get, I mean,
no, there was no trouble.
The police weren't called.
No, the police weren't called, but I remember debating, like, even telling my mom, but then my mom always dragged me to that A&P. So I would have seen the manager again.
Yeah.
So I had a very, like, strong decision. I'm like, God, I have to tell her. I can't just, like, avoid the A&P for the rest of my life. And eventually I did see the guy over and over again after that point, but...
And he probably forgot over time, or he remembered but like didn't hold it against you, because I think kids do that. Like,
of course.
Kids, I'm trying to think if I ever stole anything as a child. I've done it as an adult because I'm stupid and I just think it's funny, as opposed to not being able to afford something, which is a very stupid reason.
What did you steal as an adult? So if you're listening to this on a podcast, Tom was just looking at me, smiling but not giving a lot. What did you steal, Tom?
So
Jesus Christ.
It wasn't even that long ago.
Oh man.
It was like a couple weeks ago. I went to an event and I thought it was very funny. I paid for a $25 stuffed animal from this stupid pop-up thing in New York. And I like made a joke that I had named this stuffed llama something. And she was like, "Oh, well, make sure that he says bye to his friends on the way out, like the other stuffed ones."
Uh-huh.
So on the way out, and I've been drinking and just being stupid. And
sure.
So I like walked up with the stuffed llama, and I was like, "Say bye to your friends." Like, this is also a stupid thing that I don't need to be spending money on. But when I was a kid and we went and did stuff, like I never got to buy stuff. Like when we went to amusement parks, I never got to play the games to get a stuffed animal. So like I spend money on stupid shit like that now just because I didn't get to do it when I was a kid.
What did you steal, Tom?
Okay, so the llama goes to say bye to one of his friends, and I was like, "Well, you can't leave that one." And grabbed another stuffed animal and walked out with both of them.
Oh my God. You stole a stuffed animal at the age of 33?
We'll go with that.
Oh.
And I named them Billy and Sydney from Scream.
Oh, yes. Do you
But,
like scary movies, Sydney?
So he didn't fucking say that to Sydney.
What did he say?
To Drew Barrymore.
Oh, fucking hell. All right, go ahead.
And it's, what's your favorite scary movie? Why are we even doing this?
Do you like movies that are of scary descent? Sydney. Is that not the line?
Close.
All right.
And yeah, so that was just stupid. I don't even know. Like, and the thing is, if they would have said something, I would have been like, "Oh, sorry, I was drinking," and like giving it back, whatever. But also, like, what am I doing? Like, you're an adult. Like this. Like, I thought it was hilarious. The people I was with thought it. You know, half of them thought it was funny. The other half were like, So yeah, batteries.
Yeah, batteries are a big deal. So I took some notes for this episode. When Dan initially gets the bid for $500, he comes in with like pork rinds and beer to celebrate, and immediately starts drinking, and everyone's like, "Yeah, you got it!" I remember being like, "Oh, I think that's spot on."
I don't know if I've ever had pork rinds.
Oh, I've had pork rinds. There's two types. There's like the like super crunchy and hard ones, which are much better. And then there's the like almost like Funyun style consistency, which I don't like.
Okay.
I haven't had meat in a while. I'm a vegetarian for the past 13 years, but they were great. I before I understood that they were pork, I thought they were delicious. Now that I understand they're pork, it's kind of horrifying because I don't know what part of the pig pork rinds are.
Well, have you ever seen any of those charts that like it looks like a live animal and then it's cut into what comes from
this is the rump. This is the it's really horrifying.
Yeah, I'm like, I don't want to fucking know that.
Just like be quiet. Just let me eat my bacon in peace.
Yeah.
During the boat, the established. Yeah, they hit the boat stuff again. I do like the idea of borrowing money to pay things because at one point Roseanne is at work at Wellman Plastics, and she's trying to give her sister back some money. She borrowed like $10 from her.
Yeah.
She's like, "I'll give you $5." and her sister's like, no, it's fine. And that's something that I've done before when I've been broke. I'd borrow money from friends or family. Not really family, but mostly friends. I don't borrow money from family because I never want to be dependable on them.
Oh my god, I would never. I would rather sell my body. And that's not even something I would be good at. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. But there were like a lot of other things that I would steal more stuffed animals if I just didn't have to ask my family for money.
Yeah,
it would be real hard for me to do.
I can't do it. It's mostly because I don't know. Why do you think you can't ask your parents for money?
Well, first, my mom doesn't really have money for me to like. If I were to ask for money from my mom, I would feel like I was taking food out of her mouth.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think that's accurate. I think my mom is fine, but I would just feel very uncomfortable with it because my mom doesn't have a lot of money. My father and my stepmother are more well off, but when I moved to New York, they wouldn't co-sign on my student loans when I was 18 because they were like, "No, you're going to go to New York, maybe last first semester, and then come back here. It's going to be a waste of money." So now here I am, having been in New York for 16 years, 17 years, and I've never borrowed money from them. And I would feel like it would go back to that of them saying like that I wasn't going to be able to do it. Yeah. Which is, I think, looking into it more than what it is, but I just would not. I'd feel very uncomfortable about it.
Yeah, that's interesting. I kind of have a similar thing. Like my mom's retired and they're kind of on a fixed budget. They're doing fine, but they are on like a fixed budget of stuff. And then I don't know, there's just weird trust issues, and I don't want anything to ever come up between me and my mom with money. And I think that if I borrowed money, I'd feel beholden to them, and I always want to not feel beholden to them. I feel like it's more complicated than that, but I can't articulate why.
Yeah. And you grew up around here, so like at least your parents know how expensive things are.
Yeah, they know exactly how expensive, how much my rent is, everything. And I've borrowed lots of money from friends, and I am very grateful, and I've paid back those friends, and I'm super grateful, but I have never borrowed from my parents ever.
Yeah, and I think that what's a little bit different with my family is like them being in Michigan, like they do not understand how much rent is in New York. Yeah. So they hear, "Oh, you make $30,000 a year." A lot of people make $30,000 a year, and I'm like, I can hardly eat.
If you make $30,000, you might as well make nothing, because at least you can get assistance if you make nothing.
Yeah, the average.
If you make $30,000, you might as well just get kicked in the dick every day.
The only way that your rent is under $2,000 is if you have a roommate and or you live an hour and a half outside of the city.
Yeah, or you live in like an outer borough, but way the hell out there, like Flushing or something like that.
Where you have to take a train and then
Coney Island or something. Yeah, like there's always some. The further you live away from Manhattan, the more expensive it is, and the shittier the condition usually is, or something. You know what I mean?
And even then, it's not. It's like a $500 difference.
Yeah, it's not like I'm paying. It's not like I'm paying $500. I'm paying $1,100 as opposed to $1,700 to live in an area I don't particularly like, and it's far away from everything I'll ever do in my life.
And spending an average of 10 to 14 hours a week commuting.
Commuting, exactly.
So, okay, so that's our rant about New York and getting money from our parents.
That's our section we like to call "Fuck you, New York."
What other notes, if any, do you have?
That's pretty much it. How did you feel like this related to like how you view yourself and how you view your upbringing, like this episode, in terms of like all these money tricks they pulled?
I wonder what the money tricks were that my parents were doing. I don't know if they had them, if they didn't have them. I remember my mom always sitting down with the checkbook and like balancing the checkbook. We always had shitty fucking cars.
Yeah.
We always had terrible cars that would break down and then they'd get another shitty car. And yeah.
The thing with poverty, the thing with like not having money, especially because I've done this before, you buy things that are cheap because that's the amount of money you have on you. You know sensibly, like especially as you get older, you know sensibly, like now I know I should get boots that are somewhat well made and kind of expensive, so that I don't have to buy them again in 1 year. Mm-hmm. But if you only have $40 and $50 from you, you're going to pay less. You're going somewhere where they're $40 or $50. I don't know. Like, did you do stuff like that?
I think. It's interesting that you asked that because I didn't really think about it before, but I just realized that in getting this car that I need for a year, I bought a used car that I was like, it just needs to last a year. I had it for 4 months. I paid $4,000 for it, which is like an okay amount for a used car. And then it, had it for a few months, and then it broke down and I had to put $2,000 into it. So now I've spent $6,000 on a car that I'm probably not going to be able to resell that I'm having for a year. So when I look at that, I'm like, okay, so that breaks down to what, like over 650, something like that, dollars a month.
Yeah. That
I'm ending up paying for this used car. I should have just bought a car that was like a year old or 2 years old, made the payments on it for a year, and then sold it back, and it would have been less than $6,000.
Yes.
And I think that, like, this is just the...
Like, being poor is a trap in the sense of, like, if you had the money, you'd buy a newer car, and you'd probably make money on it, or the amount of money you'd spend over the lifetime of the car would be considerably less when you had less money. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and the fucked up thing is that I have the money to get a newer car. I have great credit. Like, I am... my credit is over 800.
Oh wow, that's better than me. Yeah.
I have a great credit score. I have savings. I could have gotten a nicer car, but the mentality that I grew up with is you get the shitty thing that you need for now.
Yeah.
So it's not even. I think that when you grow up that way, it doesn't even become something that's something that you have to do. It's how you know how to survive and what choices to make. And that's why people that are born into rich families continue to make more money, is because your outlook on life and how you spend it is entirely different.
Yeah, the way you think about things, like, you just want to stay at the level that you're used to. So if you're rich, you want to stay at that level, so you make choices that your parents made. Mm-hmm. Of like, I'm going to lease a car. I'm going to get a car brand new and lease it.
And you don't even know how to make the other choices. Like, it wouldn't even cross
your mind. It wouldn't occur to you to buy a $4,000 crappy car.
Exactly.
And you have great credit. What is your mother's maiden name?
No, I'm like, I know.
What are your 4 favorite numbers?
What did I just set myself up for? Yeah, it is. yeah, it's like this mentality, and
I get it.
It's difficult to make the other choice when you don't know what the other choice is, which also comes back to psychology and ACT and all of that cognitive behavioral stuff. Like, you know how to make the decisions that you know how to make.
I know exactly what you're talking. I've done this. The last person I dated, we're still friends. She's very nice. Taz. She came from the same mentality, and like when she would buy stuff, like even like a year or two ago, she would buy stuff as cheaply as possible. And I remember like certain things like boots in particular. I remember saying like, you should just buy a nice pair of boots so they'll last you 5 years, 6 years, maybe even 10 years if you resold them. But if you buy these like $60 boots, I guarantee you will buy another $60 pair of boots. Whereas if you spent $150, you should be good for a while. And like, it's just, I remember it was ingrained in her. It's ingrained in me too.
Yeah, and I know exactly what boots you're talking about. They're the brown ones that when we went to do the corn maze, I was like, I like those boots.
Oh, those boots are $345.
Yeah, I know. I looked at them online. I was like, well, I'm going to go with my $90
Yeah, you still get boots for like $100, $90, but those boots I've had now for 3.5 years. They look good weathered. I'm going to get them resold eventually. And my boot budget for 6 years will be the same $345 that I spent. Whereas boot budget for 6 years for people who are poor might be more somehow. You know what I mean? If you buy $60 boots 6 years in a row, it's more money than I will spend on boots. So like,
it's also like making minimum payments on credit cards.
Yeah.
Or if you miss a payment and then you get charged a fee, like the people that are getting charged that $35 overdraft fee the people that didn't have the money to cover the first charge.
Yeah, they didn't have the money to like have a savings. They didn't have the money to have overdraft protection. It's like a systemic trap.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, and like people don't like. They're starting to change this recently, but like the credit score for getting an apartment, they'll look at your credit score. That's not indicative of anything. That's indicative of making payments on credit cards essentially, and not having judgments against you. But it's also like they've started to do this thing in New York where they will sometimes look at you paying your Con Ed bill, you paying your your gas bill on time. If you've done that, if you've paid rent on time, that also should be a thing to be considered, because that's what people actually care about. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Are you paying your rent on time, or are you paying your utilities on time? Who gives a shit about the credit cards?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Really, who gives a shit?
So I think that is. Should we leave it there for now?
Who gives a shit about credit cards? Fuck you, and please give me more credit. Yeah, I think that's a good place to leave it.
Okay. So guys, you can follow the pod now on Instagram at Lunchbox Lessons Pod. We don't have anything up there yet, but we are working on it. You know, we're kind of at this moment, we're waiting for iTunes to approve the podcast, which is a little bit frustrating because I don't want to start putting out all of the promotional stuff that I've put together until, like, it's, you know, I can be like, go subscribe now. But
I think if they can listen to this, we will have something.
Yeah, absolutely.
At that point.
So that's true. So good point. But please subscribe, rate, review, share this stuff with your friends. Like, we know it's kind of begins as a niche sort of category. But definitely like share this with people so that other people can find it. Send us your questions about Roseanne or things that you think about Roseanne or about episodes that are coming up. And you can email us at lunchboxlessonspod@gmail.com. You can follow me on Instagram at ThomasWhitfield84.
And you can follow me on Instagram at TheFartBox and on Twitter at Justin Perez.
Okay, so I think that is everything. Oh, and if you want to watch these episodes with us, you can buy the whole series, the first 9 seasons, on DVD on Amazon for like $25. And if you have Amazon Prime, they're all up there for free, so you can watch them that way as well. Amazon, if you want to pay us, that'd be great. But, probably not.
Probably not.
And a huge thank you to Roseanne Fino, who sings and performs the intro that we talked about in the beginning.
Very
music.
Big fan.
Yeah, I love it a ton. So this has been the Lunchbox Lessons, and we will talk to you next week.
I think maybe you'll learn some too. It's more like an obsession, and I'm gonna force it on you.
Okay, check.
Check. Hello.
Okay.
Lunchbox losers. We're reporting for duty.
You know what? That was unnecessary. Okay, I'm gonna turn your. I think you're a little bit louder than me, so I'm just gonna turn you down a little bit.
Done.
Okay.